he said, you too stay stronger than dirt. Says, Bob, value yourself, not how many shows you do. Salvation is not attained through works. If you drive yourself to exhaustion and take yourself out, then the terrorists win. And both Melody and Judy will have at you. He went on, he said, he complimented, offers a compliment on the show on Wednesday when we talked about how Joseph got the people to sell themselves into slavery during the 7-year drought in Genesis. But the main point is he's just saying, Bob, you need to take care of yourself and don't push yourself to exhaustion. And clearly he appreciates what you're doing. Let me see what else I've got here.
I'll watch out.
Well, all of us do the best we can. Here's one. It says, hello, King Bob and Queen Melody. My question regarding the possible bank holiday that might occur. What are the possible repercussions of a bank holiday? Will our checkbooks still work? Will we still be able to pay our bills? Will a bank holiday, if it occurs, have a negative or positive effect on mining stocks? Thanks for all the great work you're both doing. God bless. That's from David. What's the prognosis for a bank holiday?
Well, first of all, if we get one, I think the first one will be of short duration, and maybe 3 days or 10 days or something like that. I don't think that they'll let it last that long, but eventually we'll have a bank holiday when they don't open for a long time. And what I envision that could happen, maybe in the fall, for any number of reasons, a short-term shutdown, which would mean checks would not clear, credit and debit cards wouldn't work, and the price of gold and silver would go up. And that's why we tell people to try to keep $5,000 worth of currency in small bills for these kinds of emergencies, maybe even $10,000, depending upon what you spend. And, of course, have plenty of dehydrated and freeze-dried foods in, and a filter and something to defend your family just in case it gets nasty. First time around, I don't think it will. If it happens more than once, it will. And I think that summarizes it. We just talked about civil insurrection, and we were talking about California, and that's a good possibility. And that could shut things down. California's bankruptcy could shut banks down in California. And the federal government's already told them they're not going to bail them out. And that means that they're going to have to lay off hundreds of thousands of employees, and it's going to be a nightmare. And it's been coming for a long time. And as they say, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And California's lived on borrowed time for a long time. And the taxes there are outrageous. And they're going to get worse. The lucky people are the ones who sold their homes and got out.
How much money do you suppose it would take to bail out California at this time?
$34.4 billion.
How's that compare to the amount of money that's already been handed over to some of the larger financial institutions in the earlier bailouts?
Peanuts.
That's exactly what I think, too, and it's pretty odd that the government would refuse to bail out the state of California while it is bailing out institutions on Wall Street. And it suggests that they want a problem in California. They could bail it out.
I think they're getting ready for insurrection, and it'll spread. Other major centers where they have high unemployment and a high ratio of people who are at the end of the economic ladder, particularly illegal aliens. Not that they're any more prone to violence and crime than anybody else is. 98% of them are good people. And they just, are breaking the law, of course, which is wrong. But they came for opportunity, and there's no opportunity at home. And but anyway, they should have been cleared out of the country long ago. We wouldn't have this problem. And many of the young people get involved in gangs, and they turn to crime and things like that. And if they're going to go do bad things, there's not going to be one of them. There's going to be 20 of them with AK-47s or AR-15s, and or better. I mean, some of the stuff that's been collected by the police in Southern California, grenade launchers and everything else. So there's some nasty stuff that could happen, and that could bring about this financial problem. And if we were to have the stock market go back down to 6,600 between now and say the end of October, that would cause problems as well. Not the same kind, but they would be economic problems. It's all not very good, and things that we talked about years ago are now happening, and the possibilities, and now they happen.
It's bad enough that we have problems, all right? Problems happen to everybody. But when the problems are being caused and aggravated by the very solving the problems, then you really have another kind. It's an entirely different sort of thing. It's like going to a doctor when you're bleeding from an arm and he cuts you on another arm or on the leg, make sure you bleed some more. That's part of the horror of what's actually facing us right now. I've got another point here I'm curious about. We've seen our own industries shipped to some degree to foreign countries like Mexico, China, India, thanks to they knocked down the tariff barriers. And our industries and jobs to some degree move overseas. Did the same process impact Mexico? Everyone thinks that we shipped our jobs to Mexico, and to some extent we did, but I wonder how many jobs in Mexico have also been relocated to China. And if that were true, does this help to explain the influx of illegal aliens coming into this country?
Well, your question is already answered. You're right. Unemployment right now in Mexico is probably about 10%. Inflation is probably running around 4.5 to 5, maybe as much as 6%. And that's imported from the United States because they're importing dollars. And the amount of money that's sent back is dropping off. It dropped from about $24 billion to about $20 billion. And, of course, the travel industry in Mexico has been ravaged. The automobile assembly lines and many of the factories in Mexico have been laying off, even though their rates of pay are relatively the same as they are in China. And so Mexico has had a very, very hard time in the last 2 years, just as the United States has, and China for that matter, and others. And that's not going to get better soon. It's going to continue to deteriorate. But one of the things that Mexico, and it's probably sent people across the border, but at this point, I don't think too many. And the reason I say that is that they know in Mexico that there's no jobs for them up there anymore. So the invasion of people's probably dropped 70%. But that doesn't obviate the fact that there's 30 million illegal aliens in the United States. I think that the influx of illegal aliens will trickle to virtually nothing. One of the things in all Latin American countries, and in Asia as well, in Africa, is that you have people who, for a long, long time, have been living close to poverty, if not in poverty. So if things are bad, they get a little bit worse, it's not so bad. But if you're living in Phoenix or Glendale, California, or Las Vegas, Nevada, and you've been making, let's say, 25, 30, 35,000 a year, and you have no job, you have a different standard of living, it's going to be very, very hard for you to adjust, so you got a problem. And so what I'm saying here is that third world countries or second world countries will not have the kind of violence that the United States is going to have. Europe won't have it to the degree that U.S. will have. Neither will Canada. And neither will Mexico. I mean, the violence you've seen in Mexico is between the government and the drug dealers. Or in Latin America, they are known as narcotraficantes. And what it's all about is the government wants to take